today's presentation on the title Varieties of English. Dear students, today we'll be focusing on how does varieties of English make the difference in the grammar uses. We'll talk about three circle concept. What does three circle concept really mean? And what or how does the variation of the concept make the difference? And we talk about some examples and exemplification. Then after, we also try to elicit some of the additional examples. Then we draw the conclusion and the way forward for the next class discussion. Let's proceed further. And as you all, our today's discussion will be based on the Greenbaum and Quick's ideas from the textbook A Student's Grammar of the English Language. Let's proceed further. In grammar uses in regard to varieties of English. What does English refer to here? We know that the circle of English differs from different languages. English as mother tongue in several parts of the world, even in United States, British, Australia, Canada, and New Zealand. If you say English works as a mother tongue, right, in these countries, what we call English, use of English as a mother tongue. Now, what is mother tongue? Think for a while. Well, hope you thought for a while. When we say English as a mother tongue, what does the word mother tongue refer to? It particularly refers to English is used as a first language. Normally, we use the countries. These are the countries that you can see on the first point. Australia, Britain, or British, what we call this UK today, right? Then after Canada and New Zealand. There are the concern that we need to think about. English is also used in other parts of the world, either as English as a second language or English as a foreign language. ESL and EFL context. ESL and EFL context, we need to think up. English as a second language and English as a foreign language. Now, let me talk something about English as a second language. English as a second language particularly referred to those countries where either they were colonized by the English-speaking countries in the past, or the rule of English is used formally in the official language. These countries are not the native-speaking English countries, but English is a dominant language in this context. Let's talk about English as a foreign language, foreign context then. In English as a foreign context, some of you might have this discussion even in second language acquisitions that you are familiar with, several issues. Difference between L1 and L2 context, which you have additional reading, which you might have gone through additional readings too. Particularly in EFL context, we think up or we relate role of English has not the major role, it is taken as an additional role, supplement role in everyday communication, where the compulsion is not found here. But English uses differ from each of these contexts too. And then what are the variation then? What, in which area the variation can be seen? This is the major prime thing the author Greenbaum and Quick want to focus on. The first is pronunciation, words and vocabulary, spelling, grammar, and meaning. These are the major areas where the variation is often seen. Right, let's proceed further. This diagram shows you how English has been scattered around the world. Right. We have different forms of English. Right. Malaysian English, if you can see, East Asian standard or standardizing English. We have Philippines English, Japanese English, Chinese English, right? Malaysian English, Singapore English, Singaporean English, Hong Kong English. Means this context, we are relating English not from one context, but English from the very diverse context. Now, just have a quick look. Where is Nepalese English? Now, can you just find where we are? Just 30 seconds for your reference.
South Asian standardizing English.
British and
Well, in which context we refer to? There's a British English. Now look at the things that you often find it where we are. South Asian Standard English. We have South Asian English, Indian English, Pakistani English, Bangladeshi English, Nepalese English, Sri Lankan English, Burmese English, and other more. Likewise, this diagram gives you a glance of world standard English. That is why today we normally do not say English, the English language, but we are now talking about the world Englishes. Let us move further. Right. Now, here we go with the three circle concept. Look at this three circle. What do you what can you see or what can you identify from this three circle? Inner circle, outer circle, and expanding circle. Can anyone just put some of the thoughts? What does it mean?
Inner circle means the country in inner circle the countries like USA, UK, whose first language is English, are under inner circle, and out under outer circle those countries who uses English as their second language, and in third circle or expanding circle there are countries who uses English as foreign language only.
Fantastic. And anyone? Do you have a different idea than of your friend? What she shared? Well, now just a quick food for a thought for you. Well, we are in Nepalese context then. Where do we fall then? Inner, outer, or expanding?
Expanding.
Expanding circle. Why do you think we fall under expanding circle?
Because we use English in only academic and only for query talking in foreign context, but we don't use English in administrative language as alternative language.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So this three circle concept has been laid. Yes, you might discuss this concept more in detail in applied linguistics and other, where the idea of this three circle concept was initially laid by Bazar Katsru in his book The Other Tongue in 1985. This is a quick reference for you. Let's move to the third. Next, what is variation then? As you can see, English language have varieties in terms of occupation, in terms of geography, in terms of friends, in terms of family and cultural background, in terms of social class, in terms of gender, age. So there are lots of variation regarding the use of language. So variation involves reason, social group, field of discourse, medium, and attitude. Right. Now let's have some of the discussion which we talk about the variation then. So as you all said, the first two group, Reason and social group are user-based. Field of discourse, medium, and attitude are use-based differences or variation. The first two types of variation relate primarily to the language user. People use a regional variety because they live in a region or have lived in that region. Similarly, people use a social variety because their affiliation with the social group. Here I mean to say these varieties are relatively permanent for the language user. Well, we need to be aware that many people can communicate in more than one regional or social variety and can therefore consciously or unconsciously switch varieties according to the situation. And of course, move to other regions or change their social affiliations and sometime may adopt the new variety. If you see the last three, field of discourse, medium, and attitude, they relate to the use of language, what we call language use. People select varieties according to the situation and the purpose of the communication. Look at the word discourse is here. Field of discourse relates to the activity in which they are engaged. The medium may be spoken or written, generally in depending on the proximity of the participants in the communication. And the alt and the attitude expressed through language is conditioned by the relationship of the participant in a particular situation. So look at this, how language differs, English uses differs in the name of the, in regard to the variations also. Right, reason. Let's have more discussion on dialect, as you are all familiar with. Now, can anyone tell me what do you mean by dialect then?
Dialect is a variety of language which is determined by geographical reason.
Very good. We have geographical region. It might be vary. Is there any other way that a dialect might vary, a language might get varied apart from geography?
Social group.
Very good. Social group can also differ. So actually, regional variation, a dialect is a user best, we have a user best differences. Popularly and technically we call dialects results from the geographical dispersion or regional separation. Sometimes we can often see English uses between British English and American English and others. There are differences between British English and American English. Well, you are familiar with in terms of verbs, in terms of use as well. There are some grammatical differences even found between American and British English. There are two national standards overwhelmingly dominant in the number of English uses and the degree to which these distinctions are institutionalized. American English and British English, the grammatical differences we find, many users, they think of national standards. In fact, American English has two past participles for get and British English only one. Likewise, that in British either a singular or plural verb may be used in a singular collective noun. For example, the government is in favor of economic sanctions, or the government are in favor of economic sanctions. Look at the things here. Yeah, we have other vocabulary differences. Labor, labor. Sunday, Sunday. Even in the pronunciation, we find the differences. Now, likewise, language might differ based on the social variation, social group. Right, now what is this? This is also user-based. because of the affiliation to different social groups. The way we use the language might vary. There are considerable variation even in speech, according to the education, socio-economic group, and ethnic group. Yes, some differences even correlate with the age and sex. Much of the variation does not involve categorical distinctions. Rather, it is a matter of frequency in which certain linguistic features are found in the group, which I just said. Next, that is why we call social dialect or sociolect. Here comes the idea that English might vary according to the regional boundaries, but at the same time, the outsider who is not a skilled dialectologist might have not readily, right? There might be a variation in terms of English. Let's take some examples there. Just an educated English, I saw cuts across the regional boundaries. So do many features of uneducated use. A prominent example is the use of double negatives. I don't want to, I don't want no cake, which has been outlawed from all educated English by the prescriptive grammar tradition over 100 years. Likewise, educated English naturally tends to be given the additional prestige of the government agencies, the professionals, the political parties, the press, the law court, the pulpit. Any institution must attempt to address itself beyond the smallest dialectal community. Well, in formal English is taken to be codified in dictionaries, grammar, and guides to the users. It is taught in school system at all levels. It's more exclusively language of printed matter. Because of educated English, some implicit social and political sanction is often found, which we sometimes call standard English. You see how we talk about official and unofficial languages. That's why, in contrast to standard English forms that are especially associated with uneducated, rather dialectal, are generally called non-standard. So we have that's even we talk about formal and informal English too. Based on the education, that's I just wanted to share the idea. To talk furthermore, we have, as I said, variation in terms of age or sex, prestige, standard or prestigious, educated or non-educated. Yes, we have another example, black versus white English in USA. Let's have an example. I don't want no cake versus I don't want a cake. Look at the situation. How the difference between black and white English occur in the sentence given on your screen. Well, let's talk something about field of discourse. Anybody? Can you just share your thought? How does discourse make the difference in terms of use of language? Any idea? Now let's have some, what is a discourse then? Let's start from this very word. Anybody?
Discourse means verbal communication.
Okay, verbal communication. Very good. What else? Other? Please add your thought. Does not necessarily mean that you should be 100% correct. Just putting your thoughts into the interaction. No problem. The field of discourse is the type of activity engaged in through language. Well, the speaker has a lexical increase. The speaker might have rich vocabulary, repertoire of varieties according to the field, and switches his or her language based on the appropriacy, based on the demands. Generally, when the switching, we have switching involves nothing more than turning a particular set of lexical items, usually handling the field of question. For example, when you are speaking, right? When you are speaking in terms of law, you speak one word of one few selection. In terms of engineering, in terms of sports, you have different language, right? So switching based on the demands. The switch involves nothing more than turning to a particular set of lexical items habitually used for handling the field. That's all. Cabin, look at the word cabin versus apartment. The situation might get varied, which we need to understand. Next is medium. Medium is basically based on use best. Right. There is a differences in terms of medium of expression, written versus spoken. The differences between them have two sources. The differences between them have two sources. Situational, which means that written medium presupposes the absence of person address, therefore it needs to be explicit. Device used, device of writing, here I say what sometimes we call mechanics, comma, full stop are not used in spoken English. But when I say, let me tell you very clearly, when we in a spoken form, right? In a spoken form, we often call as the persuasive features. When there is a comma and full stop, even if they're short pauses, suprasegmental is often seen as well. But it's not as such in the formal writing. Written of a spoken discourse, yes, we have stress, rhythm, intonation are not used in writing, but they make the variation in your speaking forms. Now, attitude. How does attitude makes the difference in terms of language uses then, which we often call stylistics too. Style may have different meanings. Here, our concern is the choice depends upon our attitude to the hearer, to the topic, to the purpose of communication. Right, now let's have a short discussion. You see, sometime we recognize a, a we recognize the attitude between formal and informal English. You see, formal, relatively stiff, cold, polite, impersonal, and informal is relatively relaxed, warm, causal, friendly. Look at the word. We have a use of, can you give me this? Would you mind giving me this? Look at the sentence. Even when we say language function, there is a degree of politeness might vary. Yes, give me this. Could you give me this? Would you mind giving me this? Might purpose the same. But to what extent are we using the language politely is the major concern that we need to focus on. Dear students, we also acknowledge there is a neutral English bearing no obvious attitudinal coloring, but it belongs to core of English. Well, the three-term distinction, some of the words might be neutral and some of the words might be acceptability or sometimes the frequency might make the variations which we need to think of. Therefore, varieties. Now, what are the varieties? Anyone? Let's have a recall. What are the 5 major types of variation? Can anyone tell me? Number 1.
Region,
Reason, very good. Number 2.
social group,
Social group. Number 3.
field of discourse,
Field of discourse. Number 4.
Medium.
Medium. Number 5.
Attitude.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Now, can you tell me what are the 2 variations that are user-based? User-based variation.
Regional and social group.
Region and
Region and
social group.
social group. And what are the 3 that is use-based?
Field of
Field of
discourse. Medium.
discourse, medium, and attitude.
Medium and attitude. Fantastic. Now, let's have a quick thing. What is regional dialect? Or what is geographical dialect?
Determined by geography and social group.
Okay. Then after, what are the factors that determine the social group or social variation of language uses? What are the factors that determine the social uses of language variations?
Social status.
Okay. Other?
Ethnic group, sir.
Ethnic group. Great.
Social
What
economic.
else?
Economic
Social
group.
economic.
Education.
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 Sex and age.
Sex and age. Now, let's have final thoughts. What are the major differences between British English and American English in terms of vocabulary? Can you give some examples of vocabulary?
Truck and lorry, cookie and biscuit,
Very good.
flat and apartment,
Uh-huh.
Cab and taxi.
Labor and labor.
Cab and taxi. Very good.
Kerosene and paraffin.
Kerosene and paraffin. Fantastic.
police and cop,
Yes. Polish and cop.
Schedule and schedule.
Schedule in terms of pronunciation. Great. So this is what makes the difference. So these are the major discussion that we come under English variation. We are talking about world English. Again, we talk about the variation that we find due to the geography, to the social turns, and others. These are the major things that we discuss under this key topic. Any questions, please? Any questions?
No, sir.